Hi, everybody. I am John Armstrong, and I help the Ontario Kinesiology Association with their government and stakeholder relations. And we're here for the second edition of Kinversations, which is casual conversations with kinesiologists. And our guests today are Devon Blackburn, who is the president of the Ontario Kinesiology Association, and Marsha Vanwynsberghe. There we go. How is that? Is that okay?
Vanwynsberghe. It's all good.
Vanwynsberghe. Oh yeah. I missed the one. Okay, that's right. So
happens all the time.
Yeah. Sorry, Marsha. And Marsha is a blogger. She is a podcaster. I think you're an author, and you're a kinesiologist, and you're a member of the Ontario Kinesiology Association.
Yes, for 27 years.
For 27 years. And we're here today to talk about exercise, physical activity, kinesiology, and mental health. So I know that both of you are involved in mental health from the exercise, physical activity, and kinesiology perspective. So let's just ask you why. Devon, what do you think?
Why? Because you can't have movement without mental health, is my short answer.
What do you mean?
They intersect with one another. So, as I teach the clients that I work with, movement begins in your brain. And how you think about how you move is going to affect the way that you move. And vice versa. The way that you move is going to affect the way that you think. So the two are, to me, the same.
What about you, Marsha? What
great answer.
What you involved? Yeah.
Yeah, I know. It's a great answer, Devon. For me, I think I know I'm involved, and I know I believe that because I know it's worked for me. And I know that it is something that I have lived by many years, is the importance of movement and my own mental health and how I handle life challenges. And on top of that, I find that when we have difficult emotions, we have to move through them. Most of the time when things are difficult, we stop, we freeze, we don't know what to do next, and we don't do anything. And so we sit in those emotions. We have to actually physically move through things in order to create change. And it's no different for mental health and physical health. I agree, Jeff.
So what's the science? I mean, there's science around mental health and exercise and the kind of impact that physical activity can have on mental health. People say, "Oh, it makes me feel better," but that's just not. It doesn't just make you feel better. There actually is science behind it.
Well, yeah, it increases endorphins, to put it quite simply. So these emotions that Marsha is talking about, when we move through any sort of challenge we face, whether it be a mental or a physical one, to pull on what you're saying, Marsha, we become stagnant. And that's energy that gets stuck and trapped into the body. So when we start moving it, we start shaking up the chemistry within the body, as well as the pharmacy that resides within our brain. We start releasing different endorphins, feel-good hormones. We start processing the cortisol that's stocked up in our body, and we start to feel a little bit better.
Mm-hmm. I completely agree. I think the other thing that I find that helps with that is that's how we move through the emotions, and then we also need that downtime, right? We can't stay in the fight constantly, and so we need the downtime. And for me, I have said for years, exercise has allowed me to handle stress as well as rest better. Like I sleep better. So, and we all know how sleep deprived we are as a society.
So tell me about your practices. So what's what kind of things do you do in your practice? I don't imagine everything is sort of mental health and exercise related, but on the things that are, tell me a little bit about what your experience is.
I'll take the floor first, I guess, Marsha.
Okay, floor first, Devon.
So when I'm working with clients, again, I've sort of really built relationships with psychologists, psychotherapists, mainly, and I'm getting clients who aren't seeing results when working with a psychologist or a psychotherapist.
So you're getting referrals from psychologists and psychotherapists?
Yeah, yeah, a lot of the time. And I find when we add movement in, movement almost transforms. I'm not focusing on the fitness of somebody. I'm trying to get that person to move and express what's locked up inside. And a lot of the time we start to see those habitual patterns of thinking start to emerge within themselves. So I've dealt with people who have anxiety, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, depression, eating disorders. And what we start to see is these belief systems coming out within them. Whether, you know, when we have a belief system over and over and over again, that's when it becomes a mental health issue. And so what we start to do is start to break that down via their movement. So for instance, I had a woman who was, she did have bipolar disorder that was being well managed. You know, it's a combination of therapies that have to come in for her, including medication. But she was never really physically active. She didn't really know how to be physically active. And when she thought about being physically active, to her it meant she had to be in a gym. Well, that was the furthest place she would ever imagine herself being. So when she would come into the office, we would literally work on gait patterning, which just means how are you producing a walk? And we started to build up this idea that she didn't think she had good balance, so she didn't like walking really far. And so we would work on her balance. We would literally stand at stairs and take one step up onto a step and back down again, and one step on the other foot and back down again. And we start to reinforce this idea that you must have good balance because you have to balance every time you lift your foot to a step and back down again. And you lift the other foot to a step and back down again. This woman now walks, 3 to 5 kilometers every single day. She went from never walking, never thinking she could walk, to now she walks and it makes her feel good.
Yeah.
We start to see that potentially, medications get to be relooked at then and revisited, because if we're creating balance within the body and within the brain without the medication, we can start to adjust those things. Well, a lot of the time I'm still working with individuals. It's my passion. If there's physical ailment and a mental health issue, those are my ideal clients to be working with, to just get them up and going and moving and understanding that fitness doesn't mean you can do 100 push-ups in a row. Fitness is something completely different, or health is something that's completely different.
Marsha, tell us about your experience.
I love everything that you just said, Devon, and I think that being in the long game, I've been in been here for a while.
How many years have you been in OKA?
Yeah, pardon?
How many years in OKA?
27.
Wow, there you go.
Yeah. And I think everything you said is so bang on there, is that when we the connection of what the mind believes and what a person can do. So I've really found a really good blend of working with clients, and when we start with them, I'm like, they'll tell, I don't even talk about weight loss. We don't do any of that stuff. And I just say, that's not me. That's not what we do. But I always say, let's talk about one of the things that you haven't done for a long time that you love doing. What is it? And they're like, oh, well, I can't get on the ground and play with my grandkids again. I'm like, what would it be like if you could? And they're like, oh, I don't think I can do that. Or I'm not as healthy as what some would say. And I'm like, what if you were strong to do the things that you could do? Like, let's not worry about that. And the focus becomes like, what can they do? And again, changing their whole belief system. When I see a client change their belief system of what they could do, whatever it is, it's just, to me, is one of the most powerful things, because that then changes their mental health of what they believe they can do, then what they allow themselves to try and do. And I always love the story of one of my clients that I still have to this day. When he first started, he had both knees replaced, and he was 66 at the time, but working full time. And I said, okay, so do you know how to squat? He goes, oh, I can't. I have new knees. And I'm like, well, do you know how to lunge? He goes, I can't. I'm like, well, then, like, how do you move? how do you do things? He goes, well, they said I can't do anything. I said, what would it be like if you learned how to do these things? Like, let's talk about that. And then asking him, what do you do for a living? Well, he owns his own store that he stocks shelves, all heights. And I'm like, so you actually have to do these things.
Yep.
You know, and here he had been in therapy and nobody had asked these questions. Now this man's virtually doing anything he wants, and you wouldn't even know it from the way he moves. So we can change what would be considered, I didn't say restrictions, but it's not. And they change their belief system about what they can do. That changes their whole mental outlook of what they can do. And that to me is wonderful. I think that is just the beautiful power of how the mental health and movement connect.
Well, one of the things that we know about the impact of mental health is that it's also a comorbidity with a lot of other chronic conditions. So those who are who are depressed or have anxiety are more inclined to have a chronic condition like diabetes or obesity or heart disease, or just like though and the opposite is true as well. Those with a chronic condition are also more inclined to become depressed or anxious. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about people in your practice or in your experience who actually are dealing with mental health issues as well as other chronic conditions. Go, Devon.
Marsha, take the floor on this one.
Okay. As far as other like physical, you know, I just think of a lot of the clients that I have, if they have come across other health issues, like very serious health issues, then it becomes a case about not, we can't do anything. It's a case about what can we do? Like, what can we do that can change? And I always go back to like basic functional movement. Like, you know, we get up and down to a toilet, so we should be able to get into a chair. Like, how do we do those functional things? And I like to teach a lot of my clients, like, how do we get up and down from the floor? How do we do those things? And it's just really empowering for them. They need to feel that they can do something. Yes, their life might have changed. And yes, the circumstances might change, but there's always something that they can do. And when you can create those changes in their mindset, you change their belief, but you also give them that little bit of control that they feel like. People hate being out of control. That's why people are so stressed out about COVID right now. We have no control. And it's the fact that if you can show them what they can control, and that is themselves and how they move and what they do, it changes their whole mental outlook no matter where they're at, is what I find.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that I think is interesting that when it comes to the physical activity and the exercise, on the one side, it actually can help physiologically with your depression and your anxiety, and then on the other side, it can actually help. For example, if you have diabetes, it can help you also manage your diabetes and or prevent some of those chronic conditions. So Devon, have you worked with people who have multiple chronic conditions, with one of them being depression and anxiety?
Yes, depression, anxiety. Usually those individuals will also have high cholesterol, high blood pressure. They're most likely a type 2 diabetic. And usually with all of that comes poor sleep habits. So they're not getting enough rest, and trying to educate them on how to rebalance themselves via using movement. I find a lot of the time we fail to recognize that stimulating a circulatory system doesn't always have to be that 30 minutes of cardiovascular activity. I find with individuals who have diabetes, the best way to start to ease them into the idea of moving is to really challenge that concept of what they think fitness and movement is. So a lot of the time, if I deal with somebody who's got chronic conditions like diabetes, depression, anxiety, they're not sleeping well, I want to start stimulating circulation, and I want to stimulate their lymphatic system. So I will recommend that they literally either lay on their bed if they're not comfortable getting to the floor, or lay on the floor, and I want their legs up the wall and their bum as close to the wall as they can get. This begins an inversion movement, which starts to stimulate the circulatory system and the lymphatic system, or ability to sort of heal and recoup immediately. It's a relaxation pose. And now we're going to focus on their breathing. Breathing is huge to connect mind and body together, to really go into the body and start to understand that you have this innate power to start healing yourself and recreating balance via movement. But we've got to break through these sort of thresholds of what movement has been described to be, i.e. push-ups, sit-ups, chin-ups, running on the treadmill, hitting the stair climber. That doesn't have to be the way we become fit. We start to see that one of the first things that will happen with patients like this, for me, is they start sleeping better. So now they actually feel rested. Now I have an individual who is closer to balance than what they used to be, and now output in terms of physical activity can start to increase. But until we create that balance within their parasympathetic, sympathetic systems, I don't want to be exerting them too hard. It's going to exacerbate the chronic conditions they already have, which then is going to reinforce that depression or anxiety that, see, you know, I can't do it. I knew I couldn't do it, and now I can't. So we've got to sort of break things down from that mental component as well as the physical. Let's, as Marsha said, let's do things. Let's focus on the things that we can do. Can we get your legs up the wall? Well, yeah, but I can't get on the floor. Okay, can you get into bed? Yeah, I can do that. Perfect. Get into bed and get your feet up the wall. Well, my legs aren't straight. Doesn't matter. Do you feel comfortable? Do you feel relaxed? Let's focus on what you can and get away from what we can't.
I love what you just said there, and I think it's so good that I will tell clients many times that fitness and health have been part of my whole life, but that during different stages of life it's changed. And there have been times of life where I was doing more strength training. There were times where I was running more. There was times where I was doing more yoga. There's times where it changes. And so I'll say to clients, I really want you to get in the habit of asking yourself, what do I need today? Like, what do I need today? And when we are in heightened times, it's okay to have like gentle movement. And as far as I like the wall, it's one of my favorite things to do. But breathing, we are so disconnected from breathing. And it's amazing how even that process, because people will say, you want me to meditate? And I'm like, you know what, meditating is just breathing. It's literally just breathing is all it is. And it's, if you really practice it, it's amazing how much you can feel yourself slow down. And I have my own personal practice that I do at night for that reason, because I can be a person who needs to unwind before she goes to sleep. So it's asking what you need. And if you were in a heightened stress time, I completely agree, Devon. If you're in a really heightened stress time, that is not the time to be pushing your body to the max to complete exhaustion. It's not the purpose of exercise. I always like to say that exercise gives back to you. It allows you to do more. It fuels you. Exercise shouldn't take from you. If it takes from you, yes, we have hard workouts, but I'm talking about if it takes from you and you're zapped out for a day, you're doing the wrong things. You're doing the wrong things for you. So it's trial and error, but I think that we're giving them permission that it doesn't have to look like a textbook of what you're talking about health.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's all the time we have. Kinversations is meant to be short and lively and engaging. I've learned a ton. I think we probably have opportunities for additional ones. I heard sleep is something that's particularly interesting. I think we've got more opportunity to do that, more opportunity to do breathing. I'd like to thank you, Marsha and Devon, for joining us for our second Kinversations. Thank you very much.
Thank you.